Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea reports fewer than 50 new cases of the coronavirus. The first time the number's been that low since February. There's still a number of people, however, who've tested positive after appearing to recover. South Korean President Moon Jae-in urges financial institutions to be timely in distributing the government's emergency aid package. They'll get leniency if they accidentally make mistakes in the process. And as people in other countries stock up on necessities so they can stay home on lockdown, one of the most popular staples has been Korean instant noodles. Exports are up more than 40%. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea on Monday confirmed fewer than 50 new coronavirus cases, a daily low not seen since late February. The 47 new cases reported Monday were down sharply from the 81 reported the day before. This brings South Korea's total number of cases to 10,284. The last time the number of new cases was below 50 was 46 days ago on February 20th. The number had been in the hundreds for many days in February and March, but since late last week it had been under 100. There were 3 more deaths on Monday, bringing the total death toll to 186. Thousands of people have recovered fully, but as of Monday, 51 people have tested positive after their apparent recovery and release from quarantine. The Wall Street Journal says the director of South Korea's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Jung Eun-kyeong, is a national hero for her management of the COVID-19 outbreak. An article Saturday praised Jung as a potential role model for virus fighters elsewhere, saying it was clear she had put her commitment to protecting the public ahead of her own well-being. It said the South Korean people have great faith in her because she's not politically motivated and her only goal is fighting the virus. Other international news reports have praised Jung for her aggressive early actions that helped South Korea avoid more drastic measures such as a total lockdown. President Moon Jae-in says the government's multi-billion US dollar economic relief measures need to be implemented at the right time, calling for aggressive action from the country's financial institutions. He was speaking Monday in an unprecedented meeting with the heads of commercial banks and financial institutions. The government recently unveiled an emergency aid package worth $80 billion to help not only small businesses and the self-employed, but also medium and large-sized companies hit by COVID-19. Take a listen.
코로나19로 가장 먼저 직격탄을 맞은 소상공인과 자영업을 하는 분들께서 대출을 받는데 여전히 어려움이 많은 실정입니다. 이 부분을 좀 각별하게 챙겨주실 것을 당부드립니다. 기업에 대한 자금 지원도 필요한 곳에 적시에 충분한 공급이 이루어져야겠습니다.
Moon also promised that the government would be lenient on financial institutions that make unintended mistakes in the process of providing the aid and will not hold them responsible. The president also thanked the institutions for their cooperation in drawing up the package. He added that further measures may be needed depending on how the situation develops, saying the government will be at the forefront. People around the world have been stocking up on necessities and in some cases hoarding them, so they can stay home until the COVID-19 situation improves. One popular item, though, has been South Korean instant noodles. Our Chae Won-jong has this report.
As fears over COVID-19 increase across the globe, people are stockpiling food at supermarkets in Europe and the United States. And one of the most popular foods to stock up on is instant noodles. According to the Korea Trade Statistic Promotion Institute, $51 million of instant noodles were exported in March. That's an over 40% increase from the same month last year and twice the amount exported in January.
Exports to the first quarter grew more than 50% compared to the same period last year. Exports to China saw the largest growth. Exports to the U.S. more than doubled, and those to Thailand were up more than 50%.
Nongshim, one of the largest instant noodles company in South Korea, now has a factory in the U.S., making it easier to sell its products locally. The company saw a 40% on-year surge in overseas sales in March, driven by the popularity of jjapaguri noodles after they were featured in the hit South Korean film Parasite.
We made a video of recipes for 짜파구리 in 11 languages. Foreigners who are not familiar with instant noodles can still cook delicious 짜파구리.
Affordable and easy to cook, South Korean instant noodles are in demand as an emergency food source at supermarkets around the world. 최원정, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Yang Jun-seok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thank you for coming on today.
Happy to be here.
Well, starting a new week here, last Friday, U.S. stocks were down as the coronavirus wipes out jobs, but the figures are pointing to a higher open on Monday. The Korean markets today closed significantly higher. What's the story in the global markets?
Okay, well, the markets other than the United States seem to be in sort of a holding pattern. It's going a little bit upwards, but it's more of a roller coaster. And there's good days and there's bad days, and Korea seems to be no exception. But the United States, for the last 10 days or so, it's been steadily going downwards, and that's because I think the United States, the COVID virus situation there has gotten steadily worse, and even President Trump is now counseling the people of the United States that the situation is going to be very, very bad. Now, the reason that all the global markets other than the United States seem to be doing well is that the government and the central banks have really been doing a lot to take away the risk from the financial system. So most of the advanced countries' central banks have now offered to buy various non-government bonds so that they could provide liquidity to the financial institutions. Some central banks like the United States are even buying private bonds. And all the central banks are doing everything they can to put as much liquidity into the system. One of the things that putting so much liquidity, i.e. cash, into the system is that it actually reduces the risk for the private institutions. But sort of a bad news in this is that it's the government and the central banks which are assuming the risk. But current situation with the global recession, possible depression, I think the governments and the central banks do not really have a choice. If it was left solely up to the private sector, they would not lend at all. We would be experiencing a credit crunch. So we're in sort of an unavoidable situation where the government is taking all the risk. And because the government is taking all the risk, a lot of the private risk has been disappeared. And that's, I think, partially why the global stock market is in more or less a stable situation. And if we don't get any more really bad news, that's where we're probably going to be for a while.
Well, a sector that's less than stable has been oil prices, which have taken a massive hit. Russia and Saudi Arabia postponing a meeting they were supposed to hold today to talk about cutting output. They put it off till Thursday. Tell us about those talks and where you see oil prices going from here.
Okay, well, basically because of the COVID situation, nobody's going anywhere. And not only the automobiles, but the airlines have reduced their travels considerably. So the oil demand is really down substantially. And the production agreement between OPEC countries and Russia is about to run out. And both countries have threatened that they would increase production, which will mean more excess demand and lower prices. Now, talking about it from the OPEC and Russia's point of view, their best response is probably going to agree to a production cut so that they can keep prices somewhat high. You cannot run the prices up too much because there's no demand, but still control demand so that the price will be a bit higher than it would be. But from the individual country's point of view, not necessarily with the OPEC and Russia together, but from the individual country's point of view, because of the uncertainty with the COVID, they would want to have as much cash as possible. That means they would want to pump out production. So basically, during this meeting, we'll have to see whether the individual country's nervousness wins out or whether the desire to have a control price and do probably the best option for OPEC and Russia collectively wins out. We don't quite know what's going to happen yet.
And briefly, Professor Young, coming up this week, what's on the schedule? What should we be watching?
Okay, well, the Korean government statistics to be announced this week includes the current account, government budget trend, 2019 capital flows, as well as the March financial market characteristics. And then there's the first meeting of the Security Stabilization Fund and the Monetary Policy Committee meeting this week as well. Normally, this would be quite routine, actually. But because of the COVID virus and because of possible freeze-ups, credit crunch in the financial market, all these meetings, all these statistics have taken on more meaning than usual, especially the latest statistics from March. Will be really looking out whether we could see traces of the effect from COVID virus here. Because in a sense, at least in terms of economics, the COVID virus really hit us very quickly. So very few of these were reflected even in the February figures. Now, for the United States, the oil reserves, for the reason that we talked about in the last questions, that would be a very interesting statistic to see, especially how their shale oil production is going. And then this week's unemployment benefit request, we'll have to see whether, well, we had astronomically high numbers for the last 2 weeks, and we'll have to see whether that is going to grow or maybe, hopefully, it'll stabilize, but it'll probably grow.
Well, it should be interesting indeed. All right, Professor Young, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Now, as researchers learn more about COVID-19, the importance of widespread testing is becoming more and more apparent. That means countries are looking for reliable diagnostic kits, and South Korea's are in high demand. In fact, as our Kim Sung-min reports, more than 100 countries are looking to South Korea for supplies.
As the COVID-19 pandemic rages around the world, more than 100 different countries have made inquiries about the test kits made and used in South Korea. For Lithuania, Bulgaria, and the U.S., their respective leaders directly reached out to President Moon Jae-in to make urgent requests for South Korea's kits. Over the past few months, South Korea's diagnostic kits have proven their speed and accuracy through hundreds of thousands of samplings. Once the test is done, the kits show a reliable positive or negative result within 6 hours. This contrasts sharply with Chinese-made kits. The Spanish government recently decided not to use test kits that bought from China because of their low reliability of only 30%. The key behind South Korea's rapid test kit development was immediate action taken by the government and the country's innovative medical companies. As soon as South Korea confirmed its first case in January, government officials gathered the heads of several local medical companies, urged them to produce high-quality kits, and vowed that they'd be approved extremely quickly. South Korean experts also worked hard to minimize potential errors and constantly provided advice to ensure the kits would be the highest possible quality.
The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention urged local medical companies to quickly develop a coronavirus test kit. We then immediately conducted concise evaluations on the new kits.
Adding to its credibility, South Korea's test method for infectious diseases has been accepted as a draft international standard by the International Organization for Standardization. After receiving final approval from all member states, the method is expected to be designated as an international standard before the end of the year. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
Now, around this time last year, South Korea became the first country in the world to commercialize a 5G mobile communications network. Now millions of people are using it, and there's been a remarkable progress in the country in terms of 5G technology. Oh Soo-young has more.
South Korea is continuing to speed ahead with its plan to become a world leader in 5G, 1 year after its world-first launch of the superfast network. The country hit 5,360,000 5G subscribers as of February, a monthly increase of 8%, showing steady growth despite fears of market downturn amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Although launches of new 5G products and services have been postponed around the world, the market still has potential to grow.
I think there's also going to be a lot of consumers working from home, rethinking their setups and saying, what do I need to deal with the new normal, the new world that we live in which case there's a very, very real possibility that 5G phone, a new laptop, maybe even a new television because we're sitting in front of the TV all the time. I think there could be a wave of consumerism when things settle down.
Kaplan says a game changer for the network would be a killer 5G app.
I know in South Korea there's a popular baseball app, right, where it allows you to not just watch video high speed, but actually change camera angles in real time. That's fascinating. And I think we need to see several more of those really dynamic killer apps.
Korean IT firms like KT Corporation are finding ways to make 5G work amid the pandemic.
Our 5G-based video call service allows multiple users to chat with 3D avatars. The usage has doubled amid social distancing and telecommuting. Other services include VR game contents with 8K quality as well as 5G game streaming.
Since launching 5G on April 3rd last year, Korea has not only released entertainment content, but has tested driverless vehicles, emergency medical care, and even remote farming solutions that run on the wireless network. Useong, Arirang News.
That brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.